friends, what is up and welcome back to my channel. As you guys can tell by the title of today's video, I uploaded a video on Instagram of my favorite couples, and I realized after filming that I should really upload it to Instagram as well. So that's going to be what today's video is. Some of my favorite couples that when I think about them just make me super freaking happy. I'm not going to linger too long on the intro. I do want to get this out as soon as possible, so I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. The first couple that I want to talk about are Danny and Zaf from Take a Hint, Danny Brown. Well, I do like Get a Life, Chloe Brown. I love Danny and Zaf so much more. Zafir is one of my favorite characters. Basically, Danny is bisexual, and she's one of those people who just believes that the relationship doesn't necessarily need to be a relationship. She purely wants somebody to sleep with. Insert Zaf, who is an ex-rugby player who also suffers from anxiety, and I do like the emphasis on that in this book. I'll get to that a little bit later. But Zaf is one of those characters who reads romance novels, wants to find true love, believes in happy endings, and something happens with Zaf and Danny where they are forced to kind of fake date, which is one of my favorite tropes in books to begin with. Let me know down below your favorite kind of trope. We'll see if we kind of agree, but fake dating is one of mine because I know it always means that they're going to end up falling for each other, even though romance tends to follow the same kind of storyline in general. Couple meets, something happens, they break up, they end up having a happy ending. But with this book, the reason why I love it so much is it's so much more than that for me. Like I said, Danny's a very like herself forward kind of person. She's definitely very caring and loves people, but she wants what she wants, and I can appreciate that. And Zaf, like I said, is this big teddy bear ex-rugby player who really believes in happy endings, and I like the juxtaposition of the two characters. I thought they were a lot of fun together. I think that in its own would have been beautiful, but even besides that, and like I said, Zaf does struggle with anxiety, and the way that Danny handles that throughout the story, and the way that Zaf kind of handles the fact that she doesn't really take care of herself, that she's very goal-oriented and will stay up all night and not sleep and doesn't really, like I said, nurture herself. I like that. I really, really love them as a couple. They're fun, they're sassy, the sex is fantastic. This book, 100%, if you're looking for a really cute romance, I would go with that. The next book that I want to talk about, I feel like a lot of people are probably going to talk about, but it'd be Red, White, and Royal Blue. I love Alex and Henry. Alex is the son of the first woman president, I believe, in the United States, and then Henry is a prince over in England. And the reason why I like this is because they're not, I wouldn't say like enemies per se, but they definitely dislike each other. And they do end up obviously having like a budding romance. This is obviously a male-male romance. I do appreciate that. One of the characters is gay, one of the characters is bisexual. I do like the emphasis on that as well, because I don't feel like there's a whole lot of bisexual rep that's done well in books. This book does also have a little bit of outing in it as well, so if you're sensitive to that, maybe you wouldn't like it. But the reason why I love them as a couple is I have never, look me in the eye, I have never seen a funnier like interaction between two characters in a book than these two. Alex and Henry's conversations, 'cause a lot of it's via like text and email and things like that. A lot of the sass is there, and I love sassy, funny characters, and this 100% delivers. On top of that, they're just super fucking cute. I love the whole premise of the story. 100% one of my favorite couples in a romance ever. The next book that I want to talk about, it looks a little funny because I left mine in the car. It's not normally this light, but it'd be the On Honeymooners. This follows Olive and Ethan. Olive is very like sassy, funny kind of character. Ethan's sort of just like a dick. So this is like a hate to love kind of story, which Christina Lauren writing that kind of story, I really appreciated it because they're one of my favorite romance authors. Even though I haven't liked a lot of their newer stuff recently, there have been a couple of gems, this being one of them. Olive and Ethan end up going on their newly married brother and sister. So Olive's sister married Ethan's brother, and they end up having to go on their honeymoon because there is a horrible bout of food poisoning and everybody has to stay. So they end up just taking the honeymoon and going, even though they absolutely hate each other. They just vow to avoid each other basically the entire time, go off and do their own thing. Obviously, that's not what happens. They do fall in love because it is a romance novel. But this one, for me, the reason why I like it is because Ethan, like, throughout the entire thing, you just are supposed to think that he's such a douche, but he does things, like, he becomes, like, giggly drunk at one point, and you're like, oh my god, I just want to hug you, you're so cute. There are certain things with him and Olive, like, Olive is more on the voluptuous side, and she thinks that Ethan doesn't like that. Like, that's the whole premise of the book. But what you find out is that Ethan is like hella attracted to that. So I thought that was really cool too. It has a little bit of miscommunication. There are times in this book where if they would have just opened their mouth, obviously things would have turned out differently. But it kind of works for this. And I really appreciate that because like I said, it is a hate to love kind of story. And I think that Christina Lauren did it really, really well. They once again have fantastic banter. And that's something they're really, really good at. Which brings me to my next Christina Lauren book, and it'd be Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating. Josh and Hazel are one of my favorite couples for many, many reasons. I see myself so much in Hazel. Essentially, Hazel meets Josh because he is, like she knew him in college, but she's reintroduced to him again because her best friend is actually his older sister that she works with. So what they decide to do is they start couples dating. So they become like Hazel just decides they're best friends now and she's going to get Josh a girlfriend and Josh is going to help her get a boyfriend. The reason why I like this, even though that seems like a very shallow kind of storyline, is Hazel is one of those characters where she does what she wants to do. And a lot of people think that it's weird. A lot of people think that she's like hard to handle or kind of aloof and out there. And I can relate to that because Hazel, for me, like I see a lot of myself in her, like just deciding to take on a hobby or that she's deciding this is what she's going to do. I think that Hazel is pretty manic and I tend to function on mania. Like I have bipolar, but I tend to be more manic than actually depressive. I tend to like manic is me almost 100% of the time. I'm hardly ever in a depressive episode. So I see a lot of that in Hazel, but in comes Josh, who ends up loving her regardless and giving her like all the attention that she needs and just allowing her to be free in that way while also being steady to her. And I really enjoy that. I think that's very, very strong of both the characters. I just thought that they were phenomenal together, and I know a lot of people don't necessarily love that story. The next one I want to talk about is a recent development of mine, and it'd be Bryce and Hunt. Yes, we're talking Crescent City, or House of Earth and Blood, I guess is what it's called. It's like the Crescent City series, but the book is House of Earth and Blood. I always get that fucked up. Basically, this book, it follows Bryce and she is forced to work with Hunt because something happens in the city that she lives in that she has previous experience and knowledge of, so she ends up having to work with them even though she absolutely hates the angels. Hunt is an angel. This takes place in kind of like a futuristic New York. We don't necessarily know the year. It's like fantastical at the same time. There's like vampires, demons, angels, you know, like the whole nine. Giant wolf people. It's kind of weird. But the reason why I like them is because Bryce is very much so a super strong character, but she does struggle. And that's what I really enjoyed about this book because it's the same for both characters. So Hunt is an angel, but he's an angel only in servitude. He's forced to kind of do his job. He's basically the angel of death because he has a debt to pay. And so him and Bryce, like the reason why he works with Bryce is because if he works with her and solves this problem, he'll be freed. And the reason why Bryce ends up working with him is because obviously she wants answers to kind of what she was formerly involved in. So I did really like that. I just love them as characters. I love that you once again get to work through trauma. What's her name? Sarah. Sarah Maas writes really, really good characters who've experienced trauma. Like they never really say like, oh, they have PTSD or anything like that, but it's definitely something that you can pick out of the book. And I like the way that they kind of work through that together. It's definitely a slow burn. There is a little bit of sexy time at almost the end of the book. And you're like, okay, well, like, are they going to get together? Like I was expecting it to be like super spicy. There's a little bit of spice, but not like a whole lot. But overall, I love them together. I think that they work really well. I like the sass. I like the banter. They have that Rhysand Feyre kind of banter, which I definitely appreciate. If you like A Court of Thorns and Roses and all that, and you like kind of that sort of storytelling, I think you'll like this one too. And the last book that I want to talk about, I think I've talked about before. I've definitely talked about this book before on my channel, but I don't know if I've talked about the couple, and it'd be Emily and Simon from Well Met. This is one of my favorite romance novels of all time. Basically, Emily moves back to Simon's super small town because her sister lives there, and she is helping her because her sister was in a car accident. But part of staying there, her niece wants to go to the Renaissance Festival, wants to be a part of the Renaissance Festival, but to be able to do that, Emily needs to volunteer with her. In comes Simon, who kind of controls the Renaissance Festival and is a giant dick. Emily thinks that he hates her throughout the entire novel, but when they are both in uniform in like the cast, he is very forward and very like into her. The reason why I like them as a couple is because Emily, they both have their struggles. So Simon has something in his past that is addressed in this book. I don't really want to give it away, but Emily's crutch in this book is that her ex-fiance decides that he doesn't want to be with her because he feels like she is holding him back. So that's kind of crazy to me, like that this is kind of where Jen went with the book, but I do really enjoy that. I think it is realistic because things like that do happen, and what happens to Simon is also realistic, and it's like very real world. Like you can read it and it doesn't seem very outlandish, because a lot of romance novels, when you read them, you're like, it's very like, oh, crazy that they met and this is happening, but this one, it really makes sense. So this just was easy to kind of put yourself into, and it has that whole Renaissance-y vibe, which is one of my favorite plots for books. Like anything like autumn-y is my favorite. So I also really, really love them as a couple. So those are my favorite couples that I read over the last couple of years. Like I said, I just wanted to sit down and kind of talk to you guys about it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know down below your favorite couple. Bonus points if it's like male or lesbian. Like I'd really like to read more books with representation going into 2021. I mean, obviously I can look this stuff up on Goodreads myself, so you don't have to give me a recommendation, but if there's one that you've read that you thought was done really well so I don't have to sort through all that shit, let me know down below. But I love you guys so much. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next video.